What if I told you there were engines so powerful that America had to ban them? Not because they were unsafe, but because they were too damn good. Back in 1964, Ford built an engine with 657 horsepower that NASCAR banned before it could even compete. Even in 1969, Chevy made an engine so exclusive that only 69 people worldwide could afford it. You're about to discover 7 American engines that were literally too brutal for their own good. Engines that made NASCAR rewrite rules, insurance companies panic, and politicians scramble to pass new laws. The final engine on this list, it was so technologically advanced that it terrified an entire racing organization into submission. Engine number 7, Oldsmobile 455 Rocket, the muscle car killer that insurance companies declared war on. At number 7, we've got the Oldsmobile 455 Rocket. And before you roll your eyes thinking every GM division had a 455, hear me out. This wasn't just another big block. This was Oldsmobile's secret weapon that delivered 500 pound-feet of crushing torque at just 3,200 RPM. What made the 455 special was its incredibly flat combustion chamber design with only a 6-degree valve angle, much flatter than Chevrolet's 23 degrees or Ford's 20 degrees. This created a super efficient burn that generated massive low-end grunt without needing to rev the nuts off it. Imagine you're cruising in your 44.2 in 1970, sitting next to some hotshot in his 44.0 six-pack. Light goes green, you barely crack the throttle, and that Olds just walks away like the other guy's car broke down. That was hilarious, but the 455 Rocket got murdered by bean counters in suits. By 1971, insurance companies figured out these things were weapons. They'd slap a 455 badge on your policy and jack up rates so high that young guys couldn't afford coverage. The muscle was there, but your wallet couldn't handle the punishment. Production ended in 1976, though some engines were built through 1978 for motorhomes and boats. But if you think torque was the only way to terrorize the establishment, wait until you hear what Pontiac did when the government tried to kill performance cars. Engine number 6, Pontiac 455 HO, the final middle finger to government bureaucrats. The Pontiac 455 HO wasn't just an engine, it was a declaration of war against everyone trying to kill American muscle. When GM mandated that compression ratios drop for 1971 to run on low-lead gasoline, Pontiac didn't just comply, they fought back. While other manufacturers were backing down like beaten dogs, Pontiac stuffed their largest displacement V8 into the Firebird, creating what amounted to a defiant middle finger to those who declared war on muscle cars. The HO made 335 gross horsepower and 480 pound-feet of torque. According to Supercar Annual Magazine, a 1971 Trans Am ran the quarter mile in 13.7 seconds at 104 miles per hour, making it one of the quickest muscle cars available. This thing was still running with the big boys when everyone else was neutered. The EPA forced Pontiac to recertify all engines in March 1973 when they discovered part throttle emissions exceeded limits. Pontiac had been using what the EPA called a defeat device, a timer that disabled emissions controls after the test cycle ended. When they got caught, the party was over. By 1975, the final 455 HO made just 200 horsepower. It was like watching a heavyweight champion get knocked out by a pencil-pushing bureaucrat. Pontiac was merely a baby in front of this next engine that was so dominant, it literally broke NASCAR. Engine number 5, Chrysler 426 Hemi, the elephant that made NASCAR soil themselves and change the rules forever. February 23, 1964, Richard Petty shows up to Daytona with Chrysler's new 426 Hemi, and Ford officials immediately asked NASCAR to approve their overhead cam engine in response. That's how scared they were after practice sessions. Race day wasn't even close. Chrysler went 1-2-3, with Petty leading a parade of Hemis around the track. Ford and GM teams were getting lapped, and NASCAR officials were panicking because this wasn't racing, it was a demonstration. Most race engines are compromises. The Hemi was pure violence from the ground up. On October 19, 1964, NASCAR moved to ban all special racing engines, eliminating both the Cammer Ford and the 426 Hemi from Grand National competition for 1965. Bill France was terrified that Ford and GM would quit NASCAR entirely, so Chrysler did something brilliant and spiteful. They said, "Fine, we'll sell it to the public." The Street Hemi was born. The street version was slightly detuned at 425 horsepower instead of the race engine's 500 plus, but it was still a monster. But if you think expensive was crazy, wait until you hear about the aluminum monster that cost more than most people's houses. Engine number 4, Chevrolet ZL 1427, the $4,000 gamble that only 69 people were insane enough to make. Picture this nightmare. 1969, You walk into a Chevy dealer looking at a base Camaro for $2,700. Then the salesman casually mentions this special engine option, an all-aluminum 427 making 500 horsepower for only $4,160 extra. That's more than the entire car, more than most people make in a year. But what a monster it was. This wasn't some warmed-over truck motor. This was a full-race Can-Am engine barely disguised as a street option. Every component was forged from unicorn tears and machined by perfectionist psychopaths. This wasn't some warmed-over truck motor. This was a full-race Can-Am engine with forged pistons, steel crank, and aluminum heads. The ZL1 used a 4.25-inch bore and 3.76-inch stroke, but the real magic was in the materials. That aluminum block weighed 100 pounds less than iron while being stronger, creating perfect 50-50 weight distribution. Here's the killer. Because it was technically a race engine, it came with zero warranty. None. It grenaded? Your problem. It also had solid lifters needing adjustment every 5,000 miles. Most street drivers had no clue, so these engines often ran like garbage or destroyed themselves. 69. That's how many people bought ZL1 Camaros worldwide. There are more Bugatti Veyrons. Why so few? That price tag was absolutely insane, but those 69 buyers got automotive royalty. Engine number 3, Buick Nailhead 401. The misunderstood genius that confused hot rodders for decades. Look at this freak of nature, the Buick Nailhead 401. Those valves standing straight up like nails in a board. That's where the Nailhead name comes from. While every other manufacturer copied each other like kids cheating on a test, Buick went completely insane and built something revolutionary. Built from 1959 to 1966, the 401 Nailhead was Buick's answer to the muscle car wars. But instead of building another screaming high RPM monster, they created a low-end torque beast that could pull stumps out of frozen ground. The 401 used a massive 4.1875-inch bore with a 3.64-inch stroke, but the real genius was in the head design. Those vertical valves created incredibly straight ports for maximum airflow efficiency. The combustion chambers were perfectly shaped for complete fuel burning, making every drop count. This engine made 360 horsepower and 425 pound-feet in the Grand Sport. But here's the kicker. Peak torque hit at 2,800 RPM, when most engines today don't wake up until 4,000. The problem? Nobody got it. Hot rodders kept trying to make it rev like a small block Chevy, and wondered why it got slower instead of faster. They'd bolt on racing cams, jack up timing, then scratch their heads when performance went backwards. The Nailhead got murdered by Buick's reputation. In the 60s, Buick was your dad's car. Conservative, reliable, boring. When some 18-year-old wanted to impress his girlfriend, he bought a Camaro or Mustang, not his grandfather's luxury barge. But if you think being misunderstood was bad, this next engine could destroy Corvettes while looking like your accountant's daily driver. Engine number 2, Cadillac 500, the luxury sleeper that embarrassed Corvettes and made the EPA lose their minds. This might blow your brain, the Cadillac 500. Yeah, Cadillac built one of the most devastating engines of the muscle car era, and hardly anybody talks about it. 8.2 liters of pure American excess with a massive 4.30-inch bore and 4.304-inch stroke, the largest displacement engine GM ever mass-produced. In 1970, this beast made 400 horsepower and 550 pound-feet of torque at just 3,000 RPM. More twist than a modern Hellcat, the 500 used a unique combustion chamber design with 10.25:1 compression that burned fuel so efficiently it was the only GM engine to meet emissions standards with just a carburetor all the way to 1990. The cam was mild at 0.474-inch lift, but with that massive displacement, it didn't need aggressive timing to make power. Picture this, 1970 stoplight, some punk in a Corvette LS5 revving his engine. You're in your Eldorado wearing a suit, looking like somebody's accountant. Light goes green, you ease the throttle, and that caddy walks away from the Corvette like it's broken down. The beauty was perfect camouflage. Cadillac buyers wanted comfort, not performance, so engineers could build this monster without attracting heat from regulators. But emissions murdered it faster than any engine on this list. By 71, it was down to 365 horses. By 76, a pathetic 190. Cadillac also killed the mystique by putting it in everything, even hearses. But wait, this next engine is so advanced that politics prevented it from ever proving its superiority. Engine number 1, Ford 427 Cammer, the most advanced engine ever built that politics destroyed before it could dominate. February 23, 1964, Daytona 500. Chrysler debuts their 426 Hemi and absolutely destroys everybody. Ford's answer was the Cammer. Based on the 427 side oiler, Ford's engineers designed and built it in 90 days. What they created was absolutely insane. Take a 427 side oiler block, already one of the strongest engines ever, and add single overhead cams, hemispherical combustion chambers, and a timing chain so long it needed its own area code. That timing chain was 6 feet long, running from the crank up to the cams and back down. Ford engineers called it the chain that ate Detroit. Rated at 657 horsepower at 7,500 RPM with dual 4-barrel carburetors, the 427 SOHC was an absolute powerhouse. More power than most modern supercars using 1960s technology. But NASCAR's Bill France took one look and said, absolutely not. Too European, too advanced, banned. He was terrified Ford would dominate so completely that other manufacturers would quit. The politics were ugly. GM and Chrysler threatened to boycott NASCAR if the camera was allowed to race. They knew they couldn't compete, so they used political pressure to get it banned before it ever turned a wheel in anger. Ford was beyond furious. They'd spent millions developing this specifically for NASCAR, so they did what any red-blooded American company would do, said screw you, and sold them to the public. Ford built around 500 engines and sold them through dealerships for $2,300 each, about $19,574 in today's money. They came with a warning, for off-road use only. The camera found new life on drag strips, where it became the foundation of funny car racing. Guys like Connie Kalitta used cameras to run impossible times. Sneaky Pete Robinson took the 1966 NHRA World Championship in his camera-powered dragster. These engines dominated drag racing into the 1970s. Today, finding a real camera is like discovering the Holy Grail. Most are locked away in museums or private collections. A complete running camera will cost you $100,000 minimum. The camera represents everything beautiful and frustrating about American automotive history. We built the most advanced, most powerful engine in the world, then politics kept it from reaching its potential. Which engine story hit you the hardest? Drop your thoughts in the comments and smash that subscribe button for more forbidden automotive history. You've seen what happens when engineers build without compromise, and exactly why they'll never be allowed to do it again.